Okay, we're recording.
Awesome. Hello, faculty colleagues, and welcome to part two of our faculty handbook edits. On this podcast, we have Dr. Jim Daichendt and Dr. Maria Zack. So I wanted to welcome both of them to our podcast this afternoon and to ask them, they're fresh off of a WASP visit, or no, they're fresh off of going to a WASP conference. How did that go, and what things did you learn about our handbook in particular, if anything at all, that might be advantageous as we continue to work through our handbook edits?
Wow, that was quite the introduction. Thank you, Nicole, and straight into WAS.
Anytime.
So yeah, it was.
Anytime.
I attended as provost and Maria as ALO, and for me it was getting used to a lot of the language with WAS because it's becoming more familiar, and Maria as an expert, and so we spent a lot of time together actually going to some of similar workshops. So yeah, so it was a kind of like jumping in the deep end for me.
Now that's pretty exciting. I know that you can't go anywhere without going to see some art. So what was the most beautiful piece of art that you saw while you were on your at the WAS conference?
I'll let Maria answer that because we were together on that too.
Oh, Maria, let it tell our colleagues what kind of art you saw with
So we
Jim.
saw we saw a cause exhibition that was at the Museum of Modern Art. That was a traveling installation. It was really interesting. It was a lot of fun. Um, the picture I sent home was of a carefully painted sneaker.
Oh, that is right up Jim's alley, huh? We're always looking forward to like what sneakers Jim is going to wear on commencement day. So, which one did you send home, Maria?
It was a piece of art that was a painted sneaker.
Oh,
So
that's
it was an
awesome.
exhibition in the gallery.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to thank both of you for joining us today on this podcast. Today, I think we're going to be talking about really some substantive but very exciting edits to this portion of the handbook. And faculty colleagues, just in case you're wondering where you can follow along with us, remember to always go to MyPLNU and download the current version of the faculty handbook. And so, with that, without further ado, we're really going to be discussing pages 38 through 132. And then we do have some edits, particularly to Appendix 3, pages 294 to 297. But we're going to start with eligibility for promotion. And as we've discussed in the previous podcast, anything in red is really a board of trustees. And so more of an informational item, but we do want to encourage you to ask questions. And Jim or Maria or Jim would be happy on our behalf to ask questions of the board if necessary. So Jim, we have some major edits to the eligibility for promotion and tenure in section 9 of the faculty handbook. And so I'm just wondering if you could kind of walk me through maybe the changes in steps, the changes in maybe definition, and maybe even some new exciting additions to this area.
Yeah, this is a really helpful document for us going forward. When we hire folks to the university, we go through their CVs and calculate the amount of experience they have teaching at university, direct experience in terms of how it relates to the field they're going to teach in, and indirect experience, and of course all their education. And we use this to determine their rank and where they're going to be allocated on our salary step scale. So it's a really important process, and one that we do as deans and provosts, and then rank and tenure is involved as well. So having this laid out much more clearly that accurately reflects how we do it is what you see here before you. So I think what you're going to find as you read through it is it reads true. As we've become more professionalized over the years, so there's been changes to the handbook, but it's been haphazard and in some different places. So I think we've done the best job we can, but this I think will be much more helpful for faculty and for administrators.
And when you know one such change that you mentioned is there have been changes and the faculty have approved such changes to the faculty handbook. One of those was actually in the recognized terminal degrees that are not doctorate. So I think last year sometime we approved the master's in medicine, the degree for a physician assistant. It was as recognized as a terminal degree. So that is what you all are seeing in this sub dot I2, is that this has been added to the handbook. It isn't anything new, but it's something that we approved that had not been added to the faculty handbook. So as we continue to move forward, I think I'm going to toss the questions to Maria just a little bit, just because she spent a lot of time. I just want to name this publicly. Maria has been working overtime to really put together something that's very consistent, something that you all can read and it all makes sense in kind of 1 or 2 pages versus having to search the entire faculty handbook. So Maria, thank you for your work in the evaluation, promotion, and tenure section. I just want to say that these pages that you see where it says bottom of page 35, top of page 36, those are pointing you to the section in the actual faculty handbook that is posted on MyPLNU. So if you want to look back and forth between the documents, please use those pages as references. But Maria, talk us through this section. What were some of the maybe notable changes? And how do you think it now flows based on how we've reorganized the faculty handbook to be reflective of evaluation, promotion, and tenure now, all within one subsection?
All right, so I think the big change is that if you look at the old handbook, everything that was in the domain of the Board of Trustees was clumped together, and then other stuff was at the end. So it wasn't actually reading in the order that anyone runs through the process. So, for example, tenure was listed before promotion. So what the big change is, and you're going to see all these chunks of text rearranged. But what it really was to try to create a text that represented the flow through of the actual process. So understanding how you're evaluated before talking about what the possibilities are for promotion, before talking about what the possibilities are for what the tenure process looks like. So that's kind of the biggest thing, is that rearrangement. And so what you'll see is that you've got parts that belong to the Board of Trustees interweaved with parts that were not part of the Board of Trustees, part of the handbook. So you see a lot of parenthetical BOTs all over the place, and it's because that's telling you what did belong to the Board of Trustees. The other thing is that there are some tweaks all the way through this to now reflect the work that we did last year and that the board approved, which is giving a professional path for people who don't have a terminal degree.
Maria,
So,
can I stop you there?
Yeah.
I think because this is a really good segue. I see, like, for example, in 7, letter B, we've crossed out multi-year track. Can you explain why we're deleting that from the faculty handbook and what that might have been replaced with a little bit? Because we'll see that throughout the entire segment that we're sending out to faculty.
Sure. The multi-year track was something in concept we have actually never used as an institution. So it was put in when we first did the tenure revisions, which is more than a decade ago. So that's really just struck because it was something we never used. What we do have now is that we have a track, which is not a tenure track, for people who don't have terminal degrees. That allows them to understand their evaluation process and their process of moving through our systems. So now the tenure piece of the handbook really just applies to people who are on the tenure track and people who are not on the tenure track. Sort of a fun fact, as we dug all the way through all of this in the handbook, is that for our part-time faculty and for our faculty who were in this sort of gray area of not being tenure track, we didn't actually have any clarity about what even their evaluation process was supposed to look like, and were they supposed to fill out self-evaluation documents, and how often, and so on. And now there is absolute clarity about sort of what everybody's supposed to do, that you can find yourself and figure out what it is you're supposed to do. Nicole's scrolling through a really good piece of this, you're going to see huge chunks of texts that are knocked out, and it's generally that's because they've been moved someplace else as opposed to the fact that they were eliminated. So you'll see all these strike throughs, and it's because a whole chunk of text went somewhere else
And
to
we
get
wanted to
in.
keep those, we wanted to keep those in just so that we could be transparent about the things that we moved or shifted so that they were more consistent and flowed a little bit better. Jim, do you have any thoughts on the striking of the multi-year track and the introduction of the professional practice track, which we in name have already been doing, but any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it just the whole thing is you want this to be clear for faculty. The professional track, there's probably two different ways to think about it. Professional track usually has three additional units of teaching, but you see also in here we have a scholarly option of that. That basically means those three units you normally would teach, you can, if you do scholarship as a professional contract faculty. So that professional track. So that's something, again, that's in practice. It's helpful and that we've arranged with faculty, but we just want to make sure it's clear and it's consistent in our guidelines here.
Okay, moving forward, as we move through the handbook itself, there just to call to clearness, I guess, there wasn't any change as of right now to section C of this component, which was about separation. So resignation and retirement, no changes there. All of it just looks green because we shifted it over, but there were no major changes to this area. Same thing with the dismissal process, but it may be under review, maybe in the fall or the spring. But for now, there were no changes to this area. Would that be correct, Jim and Maria?
Yeah, that's correct. There's no changes now, although there's probably some aspects that we need to review because it puts the university at risk. We figure for us, it was the changes would have been too tight to make, and they would have required a lot more conversation with you all. So we elected to push that to a later date.
Great. I'm just scrolling through this section so that the faculty can see that any change is really editorial, nothing substantive. And now we get to kind of the salary component. And I think this was another large kind of edit throughout the actual handbook. And so I'm just going to scroll through so that they can see like the definition of salary actually didn't change. But maybe the scale did, and we'll get to that when we get to Appendix 3.
So
Yeah.
Nicole, the only thing that is actually a textual change at all, if you scroll down a little bit to number 3, is just the notation of where the actual information for the policy is seen. There was some, I think there were some added words that were, I have to go back and look, but there was some confusion rather than just saying, go look at this appendix because that's going to be clearer about where the information is. So
Perfect.
the changes happened in the appendix.
Perfect. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I think it's a good time to actually scroll to that actual appendix now, Maria, just since we're talking about it. And so we'll maybe talk through some of the changes that happened within that appendix. That can be found on pages 294 to 297. So while I'm scrolling there, why don't you all scroll there as well? Take some time to do that. And then I am also going to continue the conversation with Maria and Jim around salary and salary scale. So let me share my screen again. This is going to be Appendix 3, and we've skipped a part of Appendix 3, and that will come to you at a later time. But we're going to be focusing in on letter K in particular and moving down. So Maria, talk us through some of the work that you did with Jim and the Board of Trustees around particularly this part, the salary steps, and what does that mean for our faculty?
Okay, so the first part of this salary stuff is all the same. The only thing that's changed, look, I can do it because I'm in the same document. The only thing that's changed is this multiplier, and it's because we added an additional step. So if we scroll down a little bit more to the table that's got the steps in it, there were a couple of changes. You got an email about one of them from Jim over the weekend, I guess. Maybe it was sent on Friday. I don't remember when exactly it was sent, sometime in the weekend. But it's worth noticing that we added an additional step onto the assistant professor. So now it goes up to assistant 15. We had added 4 steps to associate, kind of what we were calling associate plus. Nicole, if you want to scroll up just a little bit more. No, I'm sorry, the other direction. There you go. That was, remember that we had, this was part of allowing people who are stuck at associate 21 to apply essentially for a change in rank that gave them access to these higher steps. Well, with the change of adding a step at the top, those 4 steps are now these 4 steps. So there's now associates going all the way up to 26. And then we added a full step 28. And you will see these the additional steps. So the ability to go to assistant 15, associate 22, and full 28 in the contracts that are being sent this cycle.
And I think some of us celebrated Jim's email, but Jim, can you walk us through this process? Like, what do you think it means for faculty who are getting congratulations, the new virtual faculty contract in Workday, some of us today?
The first few went, yeah, they're coming through batches and we're learning how to do it, as I said, mentioned in faculty meeting. But yes, you'll see that reflected, especially for folks who've maybe been at 27 for a number of years. So that may look a little different. You've gotten used to that number. But the great work here, Nicole, is the subcommittee that Maria led to add the additional steps for the professional contracts. And I think that's been a very frustrating thing for folks on those contracts that they just there isn't that progression and that opportunity for some kind of review to go through, similar to the rank and tenure promotion and tenure process. So thrilled with that committee, all the deans, associate deans that were part of that, and obviously all of the faculty who also spoke into it in the fall. So you're seeing all that work reflected here, which was many, many, many weeks of good work.
And just in case you've muted us by now, Maria has left a little bit of a comment about the compensation work group that worked to kind of put this process together. And
Oh,
then
wait,
Maria, yeah,
Nicole, before you, if you can go back up for a minute, because there is an important thing here with this comment. So, if you recall, when somebody was hired at Point Loma, particularly the most common time we saw this was as an assistant professor. They would come in at a step 7. We would hold them, we would pay them at a step 10 and hold them there for 4 years until they caught up with themselves. Well, part of the larger university compensation study is that we were able to shift the entire table up quite a bit. Okay, you've all seen the effect of that in about 15% or more of raises over the last few years. And so what it means now is that when we bring a brand new doctorally qualified faculty member in at a step 7, they'll get paid at a step 7, but then the next year they'll actually get paid at an 8, a 9, and a 10. So they'll see more salary advancement than they were seeing before, which is great because they'll be not just having cost of living increases for 4 years. They'll actually see their salary go up. Similar thing happened for instructors, but it's actually pretty rare to hire an instructor down in those bottom steps anyway.
Yeah. And that's a big deal because I know that many folks have in their mind step 10 and they'll mention that to a candidate, when they get their step. So all the deans are aware of that and thrilled that actually we'll be able to live that out in a proper way to the step that they're at.
great. Any other comments around salary steps, things to look forward to in the next 26-27 academic school year, Jim?
I just have patience with us with faculty contracts as they come out. I know this is about the fora, but any questions related to this, please submit them to faculty council. They'll send an anonymous opportunity for feedback to them for feedback or comments. So please take advantage of that. And if you feel comfortable, any of us, we're happy to receive questions. But we'll have 3 more fora to talk about these things and look forward to it.
And I think last question, I have received some emails about the professional practice track. What does that mean? Who are those people? Not by name, but if we were defining them, how would we define them? I've received those kinds of questions, and I've also been asked like, how is that being addressed within this version of the faculty handbook? So I'm going to share my screen, Jim, but maybe you could just talk us through who are professional practice track faculty? What do they look like? How are they different than maybe your traditional tenure track faculty? For those that might be wondering.
So it's a nuanced question, right? So in theory, a professional practice track may be someone who doesn't have a terminal degree, but has incredible experience in the field. And those folks bring such a wealth of information and experience to our students. And it may be someone it doesn't isn't interested in a terminal degree. So that would be someone that could progress along our promotion process and the steps as outlined here. But there's also, in theory as well, you can have a 10-year contract and a professional contract. And it's a different type of contract. Professional is year to year. The idea of a 10-year contract is it's an up or out system in terms of you're going up for that eventual review that you have there. So similar to like an administrative contract where it's year to year and annually reviewed in that way.
Awesome. Well, we do have some mention of professional practice track faculty now. So the first place that you all will see that will be in this component here in letter D, where it says professional practice track and part-time faculty members are a part of the evaluation cycle. And you can see below, and that describes what their process is. I'm just kind of highlighting some of the areas where we actually mention those professional practice track faculty now. So in the evaluation components, we specifically state what things are required of professional practice track faculty, also part-time faculty if we still have those. So I'm just kind of going through, Jim and Maria. Let me know if I'm missing anything in terms of the ways that we've mentioned professional practice track faculty. All that to say, track faculty, you're in the handbook. I think that was one of the goals, is to kind of give you something that you could look through if you had questions about your particular role or position here at Point Loma.
Yeah, and
So,
So
go ahead.
what I was going to say is the most common question I'm getting right now from people is if they're here and they fit in that category. Okay,
mhm.
so we've got some people who are um, uh, assistant professors that are topped out at 15. This now allows them to promote to, or 14. This now allows them to promote to associate. If we've got associate professors topped out at 21, this now gives them a way to access the higher steps in associate. We do have a separate document where some of that's lined out. And Jim, it might be good for us to just set up some kind of separate time for the people who are in that category to kind of figure out what their next move is. What I've been saying to everybody is fill out a self this year.
Hmm.
Start doing the paperwork necessary to be able to make some changes.
Yeah, that's right. That's great advice. Do a SOL review. Do one this year, for sure. Because the idea for reviews is you need a full review the year before you go up, but you'll be able to see all the requirements for what that is. But I think at the end, like what I want folks to hear is like we're committed to developing our professional track folks. I mean, this is meant to we want to keep you here. That's the idea,
Yeah.
and invest in you. So I hope you hear that, and we'll continue to talk about what that means.
And as a faculty member in the College of Health Sciences, we have several faculty who fall into this area, and I can say for certain that they feel supported, and they feel that you, as provost, do want to develop them in their career here at Point Loma. Okay, I think that summarizes most of the substantive changes around salary, around evaluation, promotion, and tenure. And then the only thing really left to discuss is in the governance component. So excuse my scroll. There weren't very many changes to the governance section, but the Faculty Development Committee in particular had a year 3 review. And so that committee really spent time thinking about what it is they do, who it is that they support. And so there are some changes that we would love to direct your attention to. These changes have been kind of going back and forth within the committee for about 3 years. So this would, I would say, about 15 different faculty members poured into this. We also consulted with April Cordero and Joe Clemens as the director for the Center in Teaching and Learning. And so you'll see what this faculty committee's new roles might be, or major responsibilities, kind of how we redefine that. And then we did get some questions around planning council. Jim did present this as an informational item in the early spring, but that now has been added to the actual faculty handbook. And so if you would like to learn more about the planning council, that has been added to the faculty handbook, so you can spend some time there. And then obviously, if you have questions around planning council, please feel free to send those in the form that faculty council will send out later this evening or tomorrow morning. So any other thoughts, parting thoughts, Jim or Maria?
None for me. That's perfect.
Nope.
Great. So has been another awesome podcast for the Faculty Handbook. We do hope that you see what the spirit of all of these changes is. It's really to be reflective of what current practice is here at Point Loma. And also in the real world, we have a WASP visit coming soon. And so we really do need to ensure that the Faculty Handbook aligns with current practice, since our site visit team will be asking us about our current practice, and they will be consulting our faculty handbook. So as always, thank you for listening to our podcast. If you have any questions, you can reach out to a faculty council representative. You certainly can reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer any questions as it relates to the edits. I know Jim loves when he gets questions about the faculty handbook and really he just looks forward to them. And then Maria has become a faculty handbook editor expert just by nature of being the ALO of the institution. So without further ado, we're going to send this out to you all. We hope that you listen. We actually hope that you watch this. And we hope that when we get to faculty meeting, we can either just vote to pass it or have a very small conversation around edits to the faculty handbook. Thank you so much for your time. And more importantly, thank you for trusting us with such hard, delicate work.